The Toronto Raptors made a surprising signing today, bringing in Garrett Temple on a one-year deal. So we'll break down this contract, what he's able to bring to the table, and what it means for the rest of the roster, because that final roster spot is now technically filled with Temple on the roster getting a one-year guaranteed contract. So we'll break down what it means for some of the other guys fighting for positions on this organization, and some are speculating this could be the start of a few moves which would set up a big trade. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump straight into the Woj bomb that came out today, as news has come out that the Raptors have signed Garrett Temple to a one-year, $3.2 million deal for the Toronto Raptors. Now, $3.2 million, it's not an insane contract, but for end of the bench guy, a signing come late July, August. Some have looked at it as a substantial contract. This is basically the minimum you're going to get for a guy with the experience of Garrett Temple. The league has sort of restrictions or floors in terms of the contracts that they're able to be offered. And Garrett Temple is certainly an NBA veteran. He's currently 37 years old. He's played 14 seasons in the NBA. I believe he's played on 12 teams in his last 14 years. Played for the Pelicans for the past 2 seasons, but he's 6'5", 195. In his day, could definitely play some solid defense. Has been a solid 3-and-D player over the course of his career, but at 37 years old right now, he's definitely entering the twilight, if not in the twilight of his career at this point, because his stats aren't where they've been over the course of his, tenure in the NBA. Just last season for the New Orleans Pelicans, came out and only averaged 2 points per game. 40% from the field, but 42% from the three-point line is the real value add there for the Toronto Raptors, a team that needs shooting, that needs that floor spacing for guys like Scottie Barnes, Pascal Siakam, whoever the heck is going to be out there on the court for the Toronto Raptors this season. Garrett Temple, play style, will be able to complement that, and he's not going to be a player we should expect to be in the rotation night in, night out, but he's a guy that's serviceable, can definitely give you 10 minutes of floor spacing, competent defense, and a veteran in the locker room. A guy that will be able to, set the tone in the Raptors organization where things were kind of messy last season. To have vets like Garrett Temple, the value isn't just in how many buckets he's going to score per night. It's having him being a stabilizing force, second coach out there on the bench. Those types of players are extremely valuable. And he's a guy that does fill up one of those roster spots, and we'll discuss how it impacts the sort of race for the end of the bench for some of these players, but is a guy you can expect to at least make it through halfway through the season. I'd be shocked if Masai Ujiri's handing out $3 million deals if they're just going to waive a guy, cut him. I think Masai, even though some people have lost faith in some of the moves Masai's made as of late, he's not going to be just throwing out $3 million and then just cutting them a month later, no matter who the heck is playing well. So that's something that is fairly interesting, a deal that is handed out. You can see where Masai's value is really showing, building up the vets in the locker room, so there's less drama going on. But Blake Murphy did give us an indication in terms of what it means for guys like Jeff Doughton. Basically, the Raptors are now 15 guaranteed spots if Temple's is guaranteed, which it seems like it is. He's a cool guy and a good locker room presence. The Raptors have $1.9 million left clear of the tax, and it's unlikely to include any bonuses for Garrett Temple or some new guys. So a tiny bit of flexibility to cut a guarantee if a guy like Jeff Doughton earns a roster spot. Now, one player in Jeff Doughton has been discussed a lot this offseason about whether or not he'll be on the team. He's been training in the Raptors training facility. Masai Ujiri has sort of praised him, said he's a part of the future for the Toronto Raptors. He had some big moments for the team last season, so there's no more roster spots. I mean, our two-way contracts, 3 of them. There's 3 two-way contracts, 3 two-way spots for the team going into the season, and Jeff Doughton was not given one of them. They were given to Ron Harper Jr., Marquise Noel, and Javon Liberty Freeman, so Freeman Liberty, so no spot there for Jeff, and now the end of the bench, the end of the roster is sort of filled, and maybe we make a trade, maybe we make a move. I mean, Josh Lundberg fills it up or writes it out pretty well here, right? We obviously have our guys in Siakam, Trent, Anunoby, Pirtle, Schroeder, Boucher, Barnes, Young, Porter, Grady Dick, McDaniels, Precious Achua, and then at the end of the bench, you have guys like Flynn, Temple, and Koloko. Now, maybe Jeff Doughton could fight for a spot with Malachi Flynn. Flynn ends up getting waived, and we see what happens there. But I seriously doubt Koloko ends up getting waived after him just being a rookie last season. Then 3 two-ways, we discussed the two-way spots. And then Obenor is a guy that's getting an Exhibit 10 deal. So don't expect him, unless he has a crazy preseason, a crazy sort of training camp. He probably won't be in there. And then Lundberg basically discussed that, with the max of 15 guys on the books, the Raptors should have enough wiggle room to get under the tax if Jeff Dowtin doesn't press in camp. They remain high on him, but he'll need to show that he's fully healthy coming off off-season ankle surgery. So, Jeff Dowtin Jr. bringing in a fully guaranteed guy. We don't have the roster spots. It's not looking too good for him to potentially fulfill that spot. I'd imagine the guy that he's competing with is Malachi Flynn at this point. I don't think there's a world where the Toronto Raptors bring in Garrett Temple and just cut him for no reason or something along those lines. I think it's going to be between Flynn and Jeff Dowtin for that final roster spot. Who shows out in preseason, who does their thing, and that's if a trade doesn't end up going down, because there has been some speculation. There has been some people looking at, the Raptors filling out a lot of guard slots, a lot of these players deep in the wings and all that sort of stuff. Definitely a position of need for the Raptors last season, some shooting off the bench and all that type of stuff. But, you have Pascal Siakam there at your 4, lots of players on the roster, completely filled, a few weeks before training camp. Could there be a move? Could the Raptors be stockpiling assets? So, if they trade away one player, they fill out another guy. If they send out a bunch of dudes, right, they have a lot of guys competing for these roster spots, a lot more flexibility, a lot more options. They sign guys earlier on. Personally, I'm not 100% sure. I don't think a Garrett Temple signing surely indicates that, August 2nd, when Kobe Buffkin's available, a deal's going to end up going down. In fact, I think it makes it less likely that a Siakam trade ends up happening because, frankly, we need shooting around Siakam. That's the sort of roster moves you make when you keep your star players. And the Raptors wouldn't be stockpiling assets if they're just dealing out Siakam and taking back a bunch of players. Now, if they jump in the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, then maybe this sort of strategy of hoarding assets, hoarding pieces, right, does make a lot more sense because you're going to have to give up these types of assets in order to acquire a dollar piece. Give up your 25-cent pieces to acquire a dollar in Damian Lillard, right? The Raptors, unless they're trading for a star like that, I don't think this is a real indication that a guy like OG or Pascal Siakam is going to get moved in the next month. Despite the speculation, despite the hopes of some Toronto Raptors fans looking at our current roster and saying, hey, we're not that level of team just yet, but we'll see what ends up happening. Personally, I like the acquisition of Garrett Temple. The locker room is a big thing for the Toronto Raptors going into this season. I mean, the talent on this roster, I know we don't have Fred VanVleet now at this point. It's replaced with Shooter, a developed Scottie Barnes, a Grady Dick, these types of players, but just 2 seasons ago, we made the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference, and the big thing that changed last season seemed to be the locker room vibes. So I don't know, maybe if this roster, we had an Otto Porter Jr. back healthy, a Temple sort of managing the locker room, being a presence in there, maybe things will shake out right, a Darko Rajalkovic system. Maybe things go correctly. We get back on track with our rebuild, but it could be a risk. It's really tough to tell what direction the Raptors are going to end up going in, but stay tuned to Raptors Digest because we'll be covering every single step of the way. We're getting very close to 30,000 subscribers, so if you want to stay up to date, mean the world to me to hit that sub button, and, you guys are best to make it this far anyways, regardless. I'm signing out. Cheers.